Hello there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Don't you love it when you have a craft fail that turns into a pretty cool project? That's kind of what these beads are here. Aren't they pretty? They're made with a botched watercolor background, actually. And I like the beads so much that I thought I'd rebotch a watercolor background so I could show you exactly how I did it. So let me move the bead making stuff away. We'll get back to that in a minute, and I'll show you how to do the background. I'll bring out my prepared tray of background supplies. Look at that. I'm doing some work here today, getting some pre-production done. Alright, so I have some distress inks. Use watercolors if you don't have any, or regular dye-based inks. I've got some little watercolors in brushes. Again, you can use regular watercolors, you don't have to have these. I've got a little isopropyl alcohol, which is just your regular drugstore rubbing alcohol in a spray bottle, and I have some water in a spray bottle. I've got my homemade watercolor, metallic watercolors that I made with dollar store eyeshadow, and I've also got some of the loose dollar store eyeshadow there. Alright, so go ahead and replace it with whatever you have if you don't have exactly what I have here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just give a couple random sprays on my paper. I don't want to soak the whole thing, I just want a couple little random sprays. And then I'm going to use my distress ink. You can use watercolor. If you have a little pipette or an eyedropper, that would be great to help apply it. So what I'm going to do is just kind of make some waves. Just kind of some swoopy designs with the ink. And I'm going to repeat that in a couple different colors. And you might even start from one side one time and start from the other side the next time, just so you keep it random. So we are using a fair amount of ink here. So that's another reason I didn't want to waste my paper that I had made, because I had used a lot of ink on it. So I wanted to make sure it got some good use there. And I got some green. This is Shabby Shutters, just because I thought it needed a little bit of green. Alright, so now that we have these inks kind of drawn on there in thick waves, I'm going to use just some plain water. I'm going to spray some parts of it and just kind of let it drip and run. Let's get some really interesting backgrounds there. And then I'm going to use these little watercolor paint pens. You can use a brush with watercolor if you want. And I'm just going to kind of paint a few waves in there. This is just a great fun experiment with your supplies. I had done a little too much to the other background I did. I have a card in mind I want to use it for, so hopefully this one will come out a little bit better and I can use it for that card. And I will share that with you in a couple of days along with a stamp giveaway. So you'll definitely want to make sure that you subscribe and don't miss any other videos, because I will be giving away some really great rubber stamps coming up. So I'm really kind of liking that, so I don't think I want to move it around anymore. But something that's kind of fun is to take a little alcohol, just your drugstore alcohol, and just give it a couple, look what it does to the paint. Just kind of gives it a cool kind of sea spray look. And I'll bring this right up close. So hopefully you can see in there, you guys get some really neat effects. And then I wanted some metallic effects. Now I don't know if I want to actually brush it on. I can brush a little bit on just to show you how that looks. Use a watercolor brush and some of that. I can add some metallics in there. Let's throw that in there. And that's going to give me just a, I'll shake some of that in there too. That'll give me a neat little metallic look. But something else I can do is just to take the eyeshadow. I've got this in green and clear. You hear my son giggling over there. They're doing some woodworking on the other side of the basement, and I just heard the water go upstairs, so my lovely water pump is going to come on in any second. And I can just kind of drop in some of the powdery mica eyeshadow in there too, and we'll have some sparkliness on our background. And just to give it some white sea spray, I'm going to use this Delusions white spray ink. I usually make my own spray inks, but I decided to try this because it was an opaque white. And actually it's pretty good and it doesn't seem to clog, so I'm just going to give it a couple little spritzes of that. And that's pretty much how I did the background. Now I just need to let that dry. And actually I'll be using this exact background on a card coming up in a day or two, so make sure you come back if you want to see how this turned out in its entirety. But we'll go back to the tray of supplies that I had for my paper beads, since I already had one. Oh, and if your paint looks like that, make sure you take a clean brush and just wipe that stuff off the top. And in fact, I don't want to waste that, so I'm just going to throw that right on my watercolor background on some white spots there. I just reached over there and put that there because I didn't want to waste it. Okay, so let's move this stuff out of the way and bring back our lovely bead making supplies. So I got some Mod Podge here. You can use any glaze that you want, even like glue is fine. And I have a ruler and a rotary cutter. And I've also got a knitting needle to make the beads on. So this is super easy. I know some people will go out and buy dies to cut their paper beads. Not judging you if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. Keep this fine economy of scrapbooking products and paper crafting products alive. But really, you don't need it. You just can cut these on an angle. And some people say, well, you got to measure them and you got to make sure that you have it at the perfect angle to make your beads. You really don't. You can really go compensate for beads that aren't cut symmetrically. It's really not that difficult. So just cut up your paper. I like to do a bunch at once, so get all these strips cut at one time. And since it's going to be a small batch of beads, I'm actually going to go ahead and glaze them as I glue them, so that way I won't have another step to do later on down the line. I'll have all these beads ready to go for a project. Now those splatters of white are some white alcohol ink that I put on top that I didn't really like, so I don't think it's really going to make a difference on the beads. I think they'll be fine, but I didn't really like it for the background. And if you have any, like, if it doesn't want to unhook, you can take a pair of scissors and just snip it. So I'll make one of these beads. You really don't need to see me make them all because it's all the same idea. So you can, and also the back of these papers where the ink bled through looks really cool too, so you can use either side. Alright, so you want to take your knitting needle and you can make it whatever size you want. So you can make a big bead with a big hole or bead with a small hole, and just start rolling up your paper. And then as long as you center the paper, you're going to get a nice tapered bead. You don't have to have them cut perfectly. And if it gets a little off, like this one might be a little off, might be alright. Let's see what it looks like when we're all rolled up. Let's roll it up like that. Now if you're not happy with like the spacing on your little spirals there, it's simple. You just let it go and unroll it, put it back on your bead. It'll actually roll up a little easier the second time. This is very thick paper. It's watercolor. It's only 90-pound watercolor paper, but still it's thicker than what you're probably used to if you're making beads from like scrapbook paper or magazine paper. And then just get it lined up. As long as you start it off right, it's going to roll up pretty well for you. I probably picked the most difficult strip out of the whole batch here. There we go. And then when you get to the end, just slide it off with your Mod Podge. And I like to use a paintbrush for this. And just put, like, probably brush like the last inch of your paper and just hold it down for a minute. And actually, while you're holding that down, you can glaze it. And go generous. You want a real liberal coat of the glaze on here so that it'll be protected for you when you go to use it. And you want them to be nice and shiny. You could use clear ink and ultra thick embossing enamel or any clear embossing powder if you want to. That's totally up to you. They're going to look great no matter what. Just make sure you get the end secured down really well. And then I like to set it on this. This is just a piece of styrofoam with some toothpicks that I had coated with wax. That way if I get any glue on the inside, it won't stick. I just plop them down there on a pin and let them dry on one of those toothpicks. And here's one that's already dry. I just love the look of these. They remind me of the ocean. Obviously probably because we painted all those waves, but I think they're really fun and I can't wait to use them on a project. So go ahead, try it. Any of your botched watercolor papers, they make great beads. So don't throw them away. Cut them up and make beads with it. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And until next time, happy crafting.